Well, today in Perth, the federal and all state agriculture ministers met for a meeting to talk about the Australian animal welfare standards and guidelines for poultry. They reached an outcome, perhaps not one that the egg industry was totally satisfied with. Melinda Hashimoto is the CEO of Egg Farmers of Australia. Melinda, what is the first reaction of egg farmers to today's meeting?
Look, certainly our egg farmers have a mixed reaction. For our barn and free range farmers, it means that they can expand. But for cage farmers, they're still quite unsure and in limbo about what's going to happen. Essentially, at the meeting, the ministers decided that they would send the standards back to states to look at the phase out time for conventional cages.
Now that the phase out of caged eggs is back, or the timeframe at least is back in the hands of various state governments, what's your expectation now of those governments?
Well, look, any time frame that's before 2046, which was industry's position, will obviously mean that we would expect that states would be looking at compensation and exit packages for farmers. Certainly, they've put huge amounts of investment into their farm. And so therefore, if governments decide that they're going to close their cage facilities down and put this into legislation, then obviously they're going to need some support and they're going to need some help.
Caged egg farmers specifically, as you said earlier, were asking for a time frame of 2046 before conventional cages ended. Why that particular time frame and not much earlier?
Well, look, certainly most farmers invest millions of dollars into their farm and they take out bank loans that are for 30 years. So they need to be able to pay those bank loans off. And that's why a timing of 2036 or an earlier time frame is not going to allow them enough time to pay off their loans and could cause great financial difficulty as they go forward.
So what are the benefits of, say, caged eggs over other farming methods? We're talking about, free range, barn laid. What's the big benefit of caged eggs?
Look, cage eggs, obviously, you can control more along the supply chain. And so they have the lowest carbon footprint. They have lower levels of cannibalism and also disease risk. So there's lots of benefits to having caged egg farm production in Australia. We need caged barn and free range eggs in Australia to meet demand. And so we want to make sure that certainly people have choice, but also farmers have security going forward.
In terms of the cost of living for Aussie families and households, is there a financial benefit of looking at caged eggs on a shelf rather than something else?
Look, certainly caged eggs are the lowest cost eggs. They're affordable for families. And we wouldn't want to see people not be buying eggs and not having their children eat protein simply because the price is just too expensive for them.
Is there a risk that prices would go up if or when caged eggs are taken out of the Australian market?
Look, there certainly will be an increase in the price of eggs. You can't take one system out and expect that there won't be any increase. And we've seen that recently in New Zealand, egg prices have doubled based on the fact that cages have been phased out. So we would expect the exact same to happen here in Australia.